Hi everyone, Rob here. The purpose of today's video is to do a little comparative review between two razors of the same, what I'll call a shaving genre, and that would be these two razors. In my right hand, this is the very well regarded Razorine, or the proper Italian pronunciation, I'm sure would be Razorine. I'll call it Razorine. And another one, the Zazor from Turkey. Um, First, I'll start with a little disclosure, and that disclosure is that the Zazor, I purchased this. I've owned this for about a good year as of the recording of this video. The Razorine was given to me by a dear friend. I have not shaved with the Razorine. I have shaved with the Zazor several times. So the purpose of this video, once again, is to point out some of the similarities and differences between these two razors, as well as give a little bit of my own personal review and impressions of using either one. I've got something down in the comments regarding a link to my very dear friend Dave Card's video review of these same two products. He did a very good job. He shaved one half of his face with the Razorine and the other one with the Zazor. For me, I'm going to do something similar but not redundant for Dave's. I'm going to do two complete full face shaves with the same number of days beard growth with first with the Razorine, which again I have not used before, and then I'll repeat that with the Zazor and sort of give my observations, impressions of the whole experience. Also going to go over blade loading with the two devices and give some somewhat detailed account of what it's like to load the blades. So I'll make another note. As of the recording of this video, this is the original Razorine. I think they call it the Classic. There is now a, I believe they call it the Premium or Primo Razorine on the market. There have been some design revisions, which some of them are obvious by the looks of it. Some of them are maybe a little more subtle. I'm not fully cued in on those differences, so I'll be really comparing the Zazor strictly to the classic Razorine. So, just a few additional things I'll mention before getting into blade loading and other items is some of the feedback I've heard about the Razorine from users. One of the pieces of negative feedback you sometimes hear is that the finish is quite smooth. It's difficult to grip with wet hands or with shave cream or shave soap on your hands. The other one I've heard a few times is that it's a little bit more cumbersome to load than some people like. I'm going to compare that to loading of the Zazor. Observations of the Razorine, from my perspective, compared to the Zazor. Number one, we have brass, we have aluminum, the Zazor, brass on the Razorine. Considerably heavier, but more importantly to me, it's very head heavy. Almost all the weight is right here in the head. The handle has a lot less material. It's so much short, it tapers down. The Zazor being aluminum, it's easy to balance. It's pretty much the same thickness, the whole length. And also, after using the Zazor, I was really surprised how much shorter and kind of smaller the Razorine was in comparison. The Razorine, I could, you know, if I can get an angle on it, just fit it in my hand like that, and the Zazor is a bit longer than my hand. So that's that. Why don't we get into some blade loading here, and let's look at the differences. And here we are. For this portion of the video, as I stated earlier, we're going to cover blade loading. I'll apologize in advance. I have my phone camera here on a little suction cup stand on my countertop. It doesn't always stick perfectly. It may start to teeter-totter on me, and you may see me fumble to try to secure it, so I'll apologize in advance. But what we have here, we have the Razorine here, we have the Zazor here, and we have an Astra double-edged blade. For the test shaves, I'm going to use a brand new Astra, which has been my blade of choice in the Zazor. We're going to use a brand new one for each. This blade happens to be used, but it's just for demonstration purposes for the blade loading. So the Zazor is the one I'm most familiar with, so I'll just kind of blast through that pretty quickly, and then we'll go on to the Razorine. So the Zazor has a little bit of a removable, slidable little plate that secures the blade. It's slotted and has these oversized holes on one end. It's a little funny doing this while looking at the camera, but we'll go ahead and we'll get that out. All right. So for insertion of the blade, there are two studs here, and it's simply a matter of laying the blade down on the studs. It will sit completely down, completely flush with the sort of body of the head of the razor, and those studs do ensure that the blade remains secure and centered. And then the next step would be to install the little plate. It's a lot easier putting it on with it on the counter than it is taking it off. I had to pick it up to take it off, but anyhow. So now the blade is secure. All right. The Razorine, we've got a thumb screw that will be removed. And I'm probably using the incorrect terminology here, but I'm going to refer to this component as the cap, this component as the head, and then of course the thumb screw. So bear with me if I'm using the incorrect nomenclature, but for the purpose of this video, that's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to go ahead and actually, I may as well cover removal of the blade as well, since I'm going to remove this blade from the Zazor. Apologies for that. So to remove it, it's simply slide this mechanism up, remove it that way, and then carefully take the blade out. Okay, so we're done loading the Zazor and unloading the Zazor. So the Razorine, first step for loading would be to access the cap, and then the blade simply slides over the stud. It has two little bars that it I guess slots onto, so we'll go ahead and do that. I've pressed it in place, but what I am noticing, there is a little bit of a what I'll call an interference fit of the blade onto these little bars. So the blade, it warps a little when I've pressed it on there, but I think that the purpose of that design is to make sure it doesn't slide around. It keeps it centered and secure. So the next step, and I apologize, I'm going to pick it up, try to keep it in the camera's view. Try not to cut myself on that exposed blade here for this purpose of this video. We go ahead and we insert the stud into the head, and those little bars will go into those slots on the head, and then we go ahead and we turn the thumb screw tight. Now I do notice, and I think this is one complaint I may have heard about this, doesn't seem to be holding the blade perfectly symmetrical. Whoops, there goes that suction cup. Bear with me a second. And right now it's not exactly straight and square. I'm going to go ahead and loosen that thumb screw up. I can see that if I go back and forth, there's, maybe hard to see in the camera, but there's a fair bit of slop you have in this positioning of the blade and cap, as far as being square compared to the head and the bars, the safety bars at the end. But let me get that lined up. I think that's a little better. Let's take a look.
So, okay, I think we're pretty good. I guess I could see this being a little bit of a pain for someone, a little bit tedious, but I didn't find the blade loading to be all that awful. So there we have it. We've loaded both. Now let me go ahead and unload the blade from the Razorine. I'm just going to set it on the countertop here. Remove the thumb screw. There's my blade. I guess one thing I'm already kind of not liking is it's really hard to find a good part of the blade that I can grab that would be safe for me to remove without a threat of cutting my finger. So I'm actually going to take this this pencil here, pop it loose, and now I can go ahead and grab it from the ends. Comparatively on the Zazor, get that back into view for you. On the Zazor, I don't even have any fingernails, so I just basically just run my finger up here and I can get that part of the blade somewhat easily and then pop it off, and there we go. So that's blade loading. Now we're on to the first moment of truth, which would be for me to complete my shave with the Razorine. Coming right up. And we're back. So we are going to complete our first shave of this little experiment using the Razorine. Again, we've got a brand new Astra blade loaded in it. I'm going to be doing both shaves using the same software, same other items, same technique. I didn't just come out of the shower, but I did a thorough face washing before preparing for this, and I did let my face soak and wet a little bit. So the whiskers are a little bit conditioned. I didn't use any kind of pre-shave product. But today what we'll be doing for lather, we're just going to use a Nivea sensitive skin shave cream in a tube. Brush, nothing special. Satin tip synthetic. Cheapo. Cheap as it is, it's usually my go-to brush. And then we're going to finish it off with another cheapo product. Just Barbasol, grocery store bought aftershave. This is a product I like because of the menthol, but I think it's a good product for this review, partly because it has enough alcohol to give me a little bit of a sting if I get some irritation from one of the razors, and but it's not crazy high in alcohol to where it'll burn me. So that's one of the reasons I use that. The reason I'm using a shave cream instead of a soap is I'm going to be doing these shaves 3-4 days apart. Believe it or not, it took me 4 days to grow this. I don't want this to be affected by my ability to build lather one day versus another in a soap. I also don't want it to be about a fancy artisan soap that not everybody may use. So I figure a Nivea shave cream like this would be about appropriate. So bear with me, I'll build some lather. And I'm using a scuttle here, so it's going to be a little bit of a hot lather. So this is actually not my usual shaving headquarters here. This is my second bathroom. My main bathroom is being remodeled, and I've had some issues with a contractor back there, and then before that was resolved, COVID-19 happened, so I'm slowly but surely trying to put the pieces back together myself. But I've been shaving back here for about a month and getting a little more accustomed to the space. Surprised what a difference it is just going from one location to another, different lighting, different mirror location, different place, countertop to put your stuff. But I finally kind of settled in here, so let me wet my face a little more. All right, let's go ahead and we'll lather up with the Nivea shave cream. I'm one of those guys who can't make up his mind. I do a little bit of face lathering, a little bit of bowl lathering. I might change from one pass to another, but it's fun. I enjoy it. All right. Okay. Also wanted to comment on one thing. As I said, if you haven't already, check the notes here and go check out Dave Card's comparative review of the, is much more concise comparative review of the these two razors. But in my case, the reason I didn't feel right doing one side of the face with one and one side of the face with the other is a couple things. Yes, I do switch hands. I am ambidextrous when I shave, but the grain on my face isn't symmetrical. For the most part, the grain kind of goes downward on the left side of my face with a little bit of sweep toward the center or toward the right. And then on the right hand side, it kind of really cuts over to the right. Also, my growth is a little more dense over here than it is over here. I don't know why. And then the neck is a whole can of worms. So in my case, I figured it's more representative to get full face shaves with the two razors, with all other conditions being the same, rather than doing one side with one and one side with the other. Plus, it's redundant. It's been done. Dave did it. All right. So we'll start with the Razorine. My hand isn't particularly wet, but I'm going to play around here and get it wet, maybe even put some shave cream on it so I can try to experience what other people have. I am going to do the complete shave exclusively with the Razorine. I do have the Zazor here handy. I may hold it up to my face just to get a feel for a couple things and compare and contrast as I go. And when I go do the Zazor shave later, I'll do the same thing. I'll have the Razorine handy. Probably going to be about a 3-pass, maybe with some touch-up is what I typically do. And I generally start on the cheeks. So initially grabbing it, my hands are dry, nothing slippery, but the sort of aspect ratio of this handle, the very smooth rounded edges, the skinniness of it, and the sort of unwieldy head-heavy weight, does feel like it may take some getting adjusted to, and I also feel like maybe I should kind of choke up on it and almost grab it in a fist grip. But I'm going to try. I've seen a lot of people hold it just like this and shave with it. Let's start with that. So I'm able to hold it securely, but I'm kind of gripping it for dear life. Kind of like my experience with the Zazor, I do find it kind of easy and intuitive to find the angle where the blade really engages the whiskers. Okay, we're doing okay. I'm not having any trouble hanging on to this razor, but I do feel I need to grip it quite hard because it's really, the weight of it really wants to go this way. But let's see what we can do. Going around the chin and having to rotate it, again with that hard grip I'm using, it's kind of different. I'm going to try gripping it a little harder, kind of like this. Let's see how we do. Seems a little bit easier, although it's awkward for me to grab it and move in that motion. Now I'm switching to the right hand. With the right hand, this seems to be the grip for me. Holding it like this and keeping my thumb here. I am right-handed, but when I shave with a shavette or a straight razor, I do switch hands somewhat regularly. All right, I'm going to try that same grip on the left. Let's see how that works. All right. That Astra blade is just gliding right through everything. If I do end up with a weeper over here, I'm certainly not going to blame the razor. That was me screwing up with a shavette. But I do have a little bit of a weeper right here. That's kind of a little mole I have in the face anyway with that new Astra. I guess that's no big surprise. I'm not going to blame the razor for that. Okay, we completed our first pass. I'm going to rinse off. I'm going to feel around and see how well we did. Okay, we did okay. I'm mostly a straight razor and shavette user, and I definitely find that with an open blade razor like that, on the first pass, I get a lot closer of a shave on the first pass than I do with any kind of safety razor. And what I'm feeling right now is pretty typical. So let's go ahead and we'll lather back up. My first pass is a north to south. Second pass is, for the most part, south to north. And then with the funny beard growth I have, I may do a little bit of sort of east to west, if you will, to try to get an against the grain pass there. Now this guy's weeping a little more. Okay. I do not, however, go against the grain here or here. Just find it gives me too much irritation and it's not worth it. It doesn't work well with any kind of razor or shaving implement. Second pass, I generally don't need to go on as thick. Okay, now I'm going to make sure I got wet hands. No shave cream on it, but the hands are wet. Let me see, how do I want to grip this? I'm going to try like so for the south to north. I'm definitely feeling that head heaviness, but it does seem like it almost tilts this into my palm. Let's see how it is to control. Not too bad. The blade exposure on this definitely results in a little bit of quite a bit of audible feedback when you shear through those whiskers. Okay. With my left, it seems a little, feel that weight a little more, but seems to be stable. Guess I got more than one weeper. I got one here, one here. Okay, so we got most of our second pass, which is mostly south to north. I'm going to do a little bit of a sort of cross grain here. Guess I'm finding myself still struggling to find the right grip to do some of the detail work on the chin. This actually worked kind of well. So I'm going to assume that with more time with this razor, I probably could get a little more proficient with it. But let's rinse off. Let's see how we did on the second pass. Right now at this point, that's typical with just about any kind of razor. After two passes, I'm doing the south to north. Here on my left side of my face, just about at BBS level, maybe a little bit under the sideburn. I can feel just a little bit. I'm always going to have a tiny bit of roughness here because I do not go against the grain there. It doesn't work for me. And then over here, if I go east to west, as they say, which is against the grain, definitely feel I need a little bit of touch up. So I also don't go for a BBS on the neck. I go for, you know, call it a DFS, call it an SAS, socially acceptable shave, but getting that to baby smooth results in too much irritation for me, and I don't do it. You saw how much scruff I had after 4 days of growth. You can see that it's not going to be too unsightly. Let's mix up a little more lather here in the bowl. Okay. Those weepers have sort of settled down on their own, so they're not terribly serious. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit over here. I'm going to do a little touch up here. Maybe do a little bit of south to north on the neck just to get it a little bit better. Okay. Again, I think I found for the south-north, kind of like this ended up being my preferred way of holding it. Zazor, I do about the same. Boy, you can feel how much lighter this is. It's crazy. So let's do another little, very gentle south to north. Okay, let's get this over here, choke up on it, use my index finger to guide it. And audible feedback really is a nice thing to really feel if you missed anything. If you can hear that sound, you know you missed something that are previous pass. Nice and smooth. Knock this off here. Okay, this is a bit of a detailed one for me. Okay, let's see how we did. On the cheeks, both sides, we have a nice baby smooth shave. That weeper is sort of stopped on its own here. We have another small one around here. I'm not going to use any alum, any styptic or anything like that, so it's a pretty minor weeper. I'm not going to blame the razor for that, I can't, in all fairness. That's a new blade and definitely first time using it. I'm going to tack it up to operator error. As we used to say when I was in the automotive service business, we have a loose nut behind the wheel. That would be me. Anyhow, let me dry up. We'll put some splash on there. We're going to feel something by these weepers here, but let's see how we feel elsewhere. Again, we're going with just Barbasol, nothing fancy. Actually stumbled upon this for like $3 at a grocery store and figured I'd try it out. I saw it had menthol in it. I love menthol. And I find that this isn't quite the strongest menthol in a splash, but it seems to be almost, the cooling effect of it seems to be more long lasting than other mentholated splashes I've used. So that's kind of why it's one of my splashes of choice lately. So let's get a little going here. Okay. I'm getting some sting on the left cheek, right around here. A little bit on the neck, nothing crazy. As expected, I'm getting a little bit on those couple weepers there. Right now, as I'm splashing the right side, I'm starting to feel that menthol really start to kick in on the left. Excellent. Nothing on the right side of the neck. I like to go pretty heavy with splashes too, with that mentholated splashes especially. I just love that freezing feeling. All right, so that concludes shave number 1. Hope I haven't bored you to tears yet. Shave number 1 with the Razorine brand new Astra blade. First impression is I can see what people are saying about the grip, but I'm able to overcome it by just adjusting my grip technique. I still am a little bit bothered by the weight of it, first of all, and more so the head heaviness to it. So I'm holding it here. It's bearing on my finger. If I let that go, it's just going to fly out of my hand even. But it's not insurmountable. My OCD is kind of going at me a little as I stare at this this blade here. It's not holding each side of the blade perfectly symmetrically, but overall, that's an OCD thing. That's not going to affect the quality of the shave. You could argue that you're getting a little bit more blade exposure on the one side than the other, but it's negligible. It's not going to make a huge difference on the shaving performance. So overall, it does the job, and I could see myself shaving with this. Maybe I'm a little biased toward the fact that I'm accustomed to the Zazor, but I will definitely say that the weight of it, the head heaviness of it is a little bit more of a challenge than I was hoping for. Anyhow, I'll see you in about 4 days when I grow that little bit of peach fuzz back and I can shave it off again. Have a good night.